Today I am a holobiont. Now, what is this? You may be asking. It's funny. I was speaking with Temu, and he's like, oh, yeah, I've set you up for a class. No problem. We're going to do a talk on the holobiont. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Great. Super stoked. Get off the phone, and I'm like, I better Google what a holobiont is. And I go, oh, wait a minute. This is something I've been deeply connected to my entire life. This is actually who I am. I am an ecosystem. Every ecosystem is a holobiont, which is really this hologenomics of coevolution, right? This is who we are. And this is this language of symbiosis on our planet. So when we look to the holobiont, we realize that we are in a fractal relationship with our genetics, but also with the genetics of those organisms that live on and in us, and with the genetics of our larger environment. You literally are a plant holding your ecosystem inside of you. You're extracting from the soil, and you don't produce B vitamins. Your microbiome does. You don't produce vitamin D. Your external microbiome does. It's more efficient for bacteria to reproduce and to grow their intelligence than it is for your cells. But the concept here to understand is strategic partnership. Now, if you put Acidophilus bifidus cultures into a petri dish along with E. coli or Staphylococcus, they are mother truckers. They dominate that environment. They create this special ecosystem to be able to handle many different stressors. And each stressor allows bacteria to gene transfer and to gene modify. So they have this hack to actually be able to transfer genes, to share environment, to share knowledge much faster than you do. You are not a human. By cell count, you are far more other organisms. And by genetic diversity and genetic intelligence and planetary awareness and evolution, you are thousands of times, if not hundreds of thousands of times more intelligent based on the ecosystem that lives on and in you than you are by your human cells. So I'm going to talk to you about the hole in your donut. Yeah? You guys heard this concept, the hole in your donut? Basically, your mouth to your butt is your modified physical toroidal field. You are actually a donut. So you're more like this. This shape of a donut is who you are. And essentially, it's about in, do, out. This is how all energy is extracted from the universe. So your holobiont is your do. And that is how you create, both on a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional level, but also you are part of the holobiont of planet Earth. And planet Earth is part of the holobiont of our solar system, of our galaxy, and so on, right? The greatest disease of all time is nature deficit disorder. Our disconnection from our ecosystem has left us starved, has left us hungry, has left us in a lurch, looking and yearning to reconnect, to find health, and yet health is all around us. We are our own healers. Now, in this nature deficit disorder, we found a new God. We found a new form of religion. Do you know what it is? It's the pocket God. I've even got one right here. And what you spend your time with is what you worship. If you spend time on your phone more than you spend time in coherence with your spiritual faith, you have a new God. It's your electronic leash. And yet your finger, because of its fractal nature, holds far more information than Google does, far more intelligence. So as a society, we have learned to live outside of the petri dish. One of my very, very favorite teachers is Stephen Buhner. He's just an amazing herbalist. Highly recommend checking out his work. But he says, by defining the universe as a collection of parts in a great machine, we have emotionally and spiritually, I would say, disconnected from ourselves and ourselves from the community of a living organism of Earth. Connection is our medicine. We are programmed as biophiliacs. We might be biohackers, but we are actually biophiliacs. So there are many, many ways. There's always many roads to find our source code connection, to live as our heart as the primary organ of perception. But one of my very, very all-time favorites, my favorite way to break beta wave, because you probably heard about beta wave by now in this biohackers community, to get into alpha states, to get into some of the more transcendent download, to allow the muse to come through you, to interconnect with your ecosystem, is a practice called Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, to tune into your ecosystem. This is the easiest fastest way to break biowave or the beta wave, to bring ourselves back into harmony with this planet, with who we are. And there are many different ways in which this helps us, but I think the biggest one to me is interspecies kin action, right? To be in kin with our ecosystem. So whether you live in a city, and you can, just to be clear, you can forest bathe in a city. Any park, the concept is to not have a direction you want to go, but to just be in the ecosystem, to notice the tree, to pick up a piece of grass, to chew on it, to connect with it, to ground into it, to be one with it, smell it, taste it, feel it. This is an antidote to the metaverse, okay? This is a way in which you can ground in to be the true symbiotic organism that you are. And symbiosis, my friends, is what this planet is about. So I'm going to take you into the classic example of the Wood Wide Web. This is the internet before there was an internet. And this is one of my favorite places to biohack in, is to tune in to the radiant energy of the fungal networks. You know, there's a thought that maybe forests grow mushrooms. That's totally wrong. It's actually the mushrooms that grow the forests in this sense. And many of these trees, every plant in an ecosystem, in an intact ecosystem, has what's called a mycorrhizal connection. Myco being mushroom, root being rhizo. And this mycorrhizal connection is how it is nature's way of creating an easy carbon link to transfer nutrients. So mother trees nurse their young through the Wood Wide Web. Deciduous trees feed the carbon bank in the summer, and conifer trees feed the carbon bank in the winter. And each one exchange back and forth through the Wood Wide Web. During the summer, the conifer trees are getting energy. During the winter, the deciduous trees are getting energy. Everything within that ecosystem is so essential. And you'll notice if you go into a forest, it's warmer when it's cold out, and it's cooler when it's warm out, right? Biomodulating the environment. And this mycorrhizal connection is one of the most important things for us to understand, is how they help go right into the cells. It's much cheaper to create mycelial cellular intelligence than it is to create root systems. So every plant doesn't really extract its nutrients, it just pulls it in from the Wood Wide Web. And what do? They convert sugar, the number one street drug on our planet. Yeah, sugar. Oh yeah, more addictive than cocaine. Sugar. Sugar. Anyway, they use this mycorrhizal, and there's many different ones. There's ones that go into the cells and extract nutrients and have this feedback, and there's ones that are external to the cells. And these are the intelligence, the Wood Wide Web, the kinetic tissue, the nervous system of our forest. We are far more similar to fungus than we are to plants. So we actually have a lot to learn from them in how to show up on this planet. Some very common mycorrhizal foods that you may have seen in the forest are, all of these mushrooms are mycorrhizal, right? But they also, in an intact ecosystem, there's this other really beautiful mycorrhizal connection, and it's a monotropal mycorrhizal. It is the saprophytic plants. These are so cool. Once an ecosystem builds into a fully intact system, it will start to grow these nervines for the ecosystem. And if you came to check out my forest aid station at the front with all the little mushrooms on it and tinctures and weird things, there's a few of these saprophytes sprinkled into the ecosystem there that you can taste for yourself. They are nervines for the overwhelm, for anxiety in the ecosystem. These are plants that could never be gardened and never will be gardened because they only rely on that intact ecosystem. These intact saprophytic plants don't produce chlorophyll. The ecosystem provides them with as much chlorophyll as they need because they work with the overwhelm of all of the noise going on, all of the chemistry going back and forth and back and forth. Now, of course, we also have these decomposers, which are many of our top medicinal mushrooms on our planet. These are the ennobled species of our time, the ones that provide us with this deep cellular connection, the immunomodulators, the harmonizers, the intelligence of the Wood Wide Web that brings us back into coherence with our planet. Reishi, to protect us from our own mind. Lion's mane, to enhance our mind, right? Many of these mushrooms come from only these intact systems. Of course, we've hacked that too. Now, I want to take you to the beginning of time, sort of the history of our planet is mostly microbiological, right? So we realize that 85% of the history of Earth is about microbiological history. These are not our enemies. These are our ancestors. These are who we are created from, who we are built out of, biologically hardwired into the star stuff that we are. The age-old balance of the titans, the yin and the yang, is bacteria and virus. And you know what? You are actually 8% by DNA virus. Virus is not your enemy. Sorry to break your bubble. Virus is part of who you are. And your viral DNA that is built into the starseed of your genetics actually helps protect your immune system and builds you as having the ability to fend off those pathogenic organisms on this planet. And these bacteria, they train us, they teach us. Like I mentioned with the Acidophilus, they are powerful symbiotic partners to us in life. Unfortunately, here's the sad news. Once we learned that they existed, we went on a witch hunt. And we started to kill bacteria like there was no tomorrow. And we thought this was so brilliant, this age of antibiotics. Well, guess what? 1 year after antibiotics, after penicillin was produced, 14% of the Staphylococcus had figured out how to deal with it. By 1995, 90% were immune. And really, in the 1980s was the last time we discovered new classes of antibiotics. The reality is, bacteria are far smarter than us. Some of our antibiotics we've created, they've bio-re-engineered and turned them into food so that they can reproduce. And usually, we've actually started to re-engineer bacteria who have become immune to antibiotics to figure out all kinds of new antibiotics we never even thought of because they've produced all kinds of ways to protect themselves from this. They gene transfer rapidly. As soon as they learn new information, they pass it on into the environment, and everyone knows it. Hence, we've created this huge phenomenon on our planet, which is this resistant disease state. You know, you look at glyphosate, and you look at Roundup, and you look at the way we spray our fields. This is insane, the amount of chemistry we dump on this planet, poisoning our planet, killing the microbiome, destroying who we actually are, damaging our ancestors. Just like we cut down the trees, we've done the same thing in our gut, and the Roundup Ready wheat has created this inflammation. So much of this, essentially what I'm trying to say is that the manufactured chemistry is noise in the system. We need to stop killing our ecosystem and start to rebuild it. We need to bring in levity foods. We are a levity eater. You are biologically pumping blood in the opposite direction of gravity, so feed yourself with live food. If not, culture your food. Cultures always cultured their foods. All our spices, all of our cultured foods, these are our best prebiotics. Don't take probiotic supplements. That's like sending a yuppie into a gang-filled neighborhood with a ton of cash and saying, go build condos. And they're like, okay, I'll just go in there with my lack of connection, out of coherence, and your ecosystem will eat them up. Prebiotics create permaculture gut design. Seasonal local eating, of course, is so important. But remember, and if any of you were at the upgraded dinner, remember to increase wild intelligence in your food. Nibble. First thing I did when I came to Amsterdam is I nibbled on the plants here. I've eaten dozens, if I've not really totally eaten, but nibbled, tuned into this ecosystem in that sense. All right, so I know I got to go, but I want to leave you with one quick story, all right? There was this species, once upon a time, they grew this awareness of self-awareness, and they realized that they were part of this ecosystem of larger life. They became connected and had a humble abundance of this ecosystem. They learned how to live in harmony and to grow their awareness. As they grew this awareness, though, they started to create questions. These questions that they had were one of those things that figure out who they were, and they asked all these questions to start to dissect and hack their reality. The reality is they created many, many different archetypes of who they thought they should be, and they became busy, all trying to fight off death because they didn't realize that death was only just part of transformation. Now, as they started to fight off death and they fought against bacteria, fought against all this ecosystem, they realized that the answers were actually in nature. The answers were all around them. So as they built this awareness, built this connection to the nature, to their planet, they built in their internal lighthouse, their internal tree of light. And as they did this, they became part of the noosphere. They became part of their ecosystem once again. All right, thank you very much.